people's resistance against British before 1857. So we will particularly see the type of resistance that were put by the people of this country in front of the Britishers while they were particularly implementing their policies and suppressing this country. And we will also see that what had happened in the revolt of 1857, what were the cause, what is the result, and all the other. So the British expansionists policies, economic exploitation, and administrative innovations over years were the cumulative effect that resulted in simmering discontent among all sections, which burst in the form of the 1857 revolt. So, particularly if we talk about this thing, do remember one point that Britishers were exploiting each and everything. They were exploiting the minerals, they were exploiting the resources of our country, they were draining the wealth out of our country since 1757. And a lot of things they are doing, particularly. And also, they started particularly putting a lot of acts into our country, which is a way to control the administrative and political system. And apart from that, they are particularly controlling the education system, they are particularly controlling the religious sentiments also. So because of all these things, a lot of discontent was there among the different sections of our society. A lot of people were in favor of them, but a major population were particularly revolting against the Britishers. So because of which there was a burst form out in the form of 1857 revolt. So basically, if we talk about the revolt of 1857, so most of you would be thinking that this happened because the Enfield rifles were brought into India, and particularly cartridges were used on which there was the coating of oil of made out of the fat of pig and cow was there. But do not remember, do not forget that all the other things also, like the suppressions over the years, over hundreds of years they were suppressing the country, and the other things also made a major impact in the ideology of the people. And a major part of this country, as I was saying, were started, and they wanted to struggle against the Britishers and throw out them from the country. So now we have to see that what were the causes, basically what things had happened in which particularly we can see that different type of aspects were fulfilled. And what was the main cause that triggered the revolt of 1857 in on 10th of May. So we will see all that also. So here we can see the economic cause. The first of all is the economic cause. The British economic policies destroyed the traditional economy of the country. As a result, peasants suffered heavy taxation under the new revenue settlement system. The British annexed many Indian states, which led to loss of patronage of many artisans. The traditional industries' destruction, the land rights of zamindars were forfeited. So let's discuss them in details now. So first of all, we all know the heavy taxations were being implemented by different type of revenue settlement system. As we know, the Izaredari system, the permanent settlement, the Mehelwadi, the Raitwadi, all these systems were basically implemented. And one thing remember, in all the systems, the company did not want to listen anything that if the crops are not doing good, the harvesting is not doing good, or the season is not there, or anything else. The only thing that Britishers wanted was the revenue. They do not even think about the common people, the poor farmers, and all that. Only thing that they wanted was the revenue, because of which the zamindars were also particularly under a lot of pressure. And zamindar also started exploiting the farmers, the peasants, and they used to get money from these people. And that is how the burden of debt was started increasing on the farmers. So that is one of the reason. And apart from debt, they also have to pay heavy taxation. So it is one of the major reason that all these things were going on. Apart from that, if we talk about the British annexation, so we all know that by 1849, and the Sikh Empire was annexed, and by that means particularly lot of big empires in India were annexed by the Britishers, and now particular India is now under the control of British. So if we talk about that, so when they were annexing any particular state, we all know that kings and queens, they used to have a lot of artisans in their court. So as soon as Britishers annexed that particular kingdom, the all the artisans, they lose job, and that becomes one of another reason of becoming an economic cause for these people. Another one is the traditional industries destruction. That is very important, guys. As soon as the Britishers started importing the factory made goods and other things into our country, the particular traditional things, traditional artistic things, and traditional cuisine and traditional, uh, particularly other textile things were also outdated. And that particularly affected the inbuilt indigenous industries of our country. Another thing, the land rights of zamindars were forfeited. So zamindars were also under a lot of pressure. If zamindar fails to submit the particular revenue to the Britishers by the end of the month or end of the year, particularly the sun on their head will particularly sets down. Why? Because as soon as the zamindars failed to submit the revenue as asked for, they particularly have to give back the whole particular zamindari to the Britishers back. So that is one of the reason here. So I think you are able to understand that what are the economic cause. Now let's move to the political causes. So socio-religious affairs of the Indian public were interfered. So if we talk about the social religious affairs, so we have a lot of examples regarding that. Firstly, the sati practice. The sati practice was basically prohibited under the governor generalship of Lord William Bentinck with the help of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. We all know it is a bad ritual, but for the people of our country at that time, it was a sacred thing. It was a religious and social thing. So they did not want it to end by the Britishers. Apart from that, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, with the help of Lord Dalhousie, he particularly started the remarriage thing for the widows of our country. So that is another social religious practice that was that affected by the intervention of Britishers. So basically all these things are happening, and Indian public are thinking, they are particularly okay with this, that the bad rituals are going away, but they are also thinking that Britishers, who are Britishers to interfere into our things. So that becomes one of the bone of contention between the Britishers and the Indians. Another is the doctrine of lapse and subsidiary alliance forced people for the revolt. So if we talk about the doctrine of lapse, so basically doctrine of lapse was brought by Lord Dalhousie, and it was basically officially brought in 1848. And under this particular doctrine of lapse, if any particular kingdom, the king has died and he has not left behind any uh, particularly subordinate, or we can say any particular hire apart from him. So in that case, what will happen? Particularly, the kingdom will go into the hand of the Britishers. So that thing happened. And subsidiary alliance, if we talk about, so subsidiary alliance forced people for the revolt. So subsidiary alliance, if we talk about, guys, so basically it was brought by Lord Wellesley. Lord Wellesley brought subsidiary alliance, and subsidiary alliance, under this we also talked in the last session also, that what they used to do is they get the king into the pact, that king will not be able to hold any army, king will not go into any kind of pact with the neighboring states, or king will not particularly go into the fight with any particular neighboring state. All the things that are happening in this kingdom will happen according to the Britishers. So that was basically the subsidiary alliance. After that, the improper governance system of the British. So Britishers were basically taking the kingdoms into their hands, but their governance process is not very good. And that is another reason why the people of that particular state or kingdoms are not happy with the Britishers. Certain rights given to Mughal rulers were also denied. So particularly if we talk about Mughal rulers. So Mughal rulers, after the Battle of Buxar, have basically lost any kind of power with them. And if we talk about the Mughal rulers, so they are particularly also being denied a lot of rights that should be given to them. Pension is also limited, that is given. So that became also another reason for the Mughal king and also the people associated with him to do a kind of a revolt against the British. Then comes the administrative cause, increase in the rate of corruption in the company's administration. That is also another reason. On one side, East India Company was particularly looting our country, and on the other side, the merchants or the officers who are doing work in the name of East India Company, they are also particularly bypassing all the protocols and all the things of the company, and they are also looting and doing corruptions and bribery in our system. So that also became one of the reasons. Social religious causes, the British racial arrogance. This is one reason also. Britishers were basically living in our country, using our resources, getting the money out of our country, and on the other side, they are basically doing things on the basis of black and white. They are particularly so racial that they did not even particularly want to sit beside us. So that is one reason. After that, Christian missionaries increased their activities. So basically, in the Charter Act of 1813, a lot of things happened, and apart from that, the Christian missionaries were also particularly introduced into our country. And if we talk about the Christian missionaries, so on the one side, they are particularly intervening into our social and religious affairs, and on the other side, they are introducing the this new particular religion into our country. So this also became one of the reasons for the people of this country to think about. After that comes the support for widow remarriage, woman education, and abolition of sati. I also already discussed in one of the things, as all these things were happening. After that, the Religious Disabilities Act 1850, which changed Hindu customs. So this particularly also was a particular act that particularly changed a lot of things into our Hindu religion. So that is why the lot of reasons we can see here that becomes the cause of the revolt. And the major cause that happened in 1856 when the Enfield rifles, P-53 Enfield rifles were introduced into our system, and the cartridges that were particularly coated with the oil of cow and pig were introduced. This was the time when particularly we can say that the system becomes a lot of things were becoming difficult, and peoples were basically boycotting the British. So that became one of the reasons. So I guess you have figured out and you have understood the reasons why the Britishers were not being accepted by the Indians before 1857, and there were revolts particularly happening at that time and before that also. Some particular other reasons of the revolt. Another one is the immediate causes. So the introduction of Enfield greased rifles, whose cartridges were said to have a greased cover made of beef and pork, sparked off the revolt. So if we talk about the immediate cause, guys, this is really important. So do remember one thing here. When we talk about the Enfield rifles, so Enfield rifles basically uh, a new type of rifles that were introduced into the India, into our country. The cartridges which we can use to fill the gunpowder used to be coated with the plastic in other countries. But to save money, what Britishers do, Britishers used to coat the bag of gunpowder with the particular oil that is made out of pig and cow's fat. And we all know that pig is not appropriate for any kind of thing in the Muslims, and in Hindu, if we talk about, cow is a very sacred animal. So in that case, particularly, both these things are really important, and this became one of the reason why a particular section of our country, and majorly a lot of sepoys of our country, the Indian sepoys of our country, revolted, and it became the immediate cause. As soon as Mr. Mangal Pandey he came to know about this, he went for inquiry for particularly searching the things and to get the proofs. In that particular thing, he once one there was a time when he raided in March 1857. He raided into the armory of his regiment that was posted in Barakpur, and particularly in some kind of dispute, he particularly killed his adjutant. And as soon as he killed his adjutant, So what has happened basically, uh, that he was arrested and later he was given death penalty. That was in April 1857. But this particular event of Mangal Pandey sparked the outrage into the Indian sepoys who are working in the British army in different places, and this spark became a fire in Meerut. On 10th of May 1857, the revolt started from basically Meerut. We will talk about that later also. Another one is the influence of outside event. So the serious losses suffered by the British, the first Afghan War, the Punjab Wars, Crimean Wars, Santhal Revolt, all these also became one of the reasons in these particular regions that why the people are not want did not want to work with Britishers, and they start revolting against the British system in our country. So a lot of things happened in India before the 1857, and there were a lot of reasons were accumulating at that time. But in 1856, as soon as the Enfield rifles were introduced, the all the reasons and this particular reason became a volcano, and the explosion from this volcano resulted into the revolt of 1857. Now let's read that what has happened in the revolt of 1857, guys. So the beginning of the mutiny. First of all, we see that how the mutiny was started, and basically there were a lot of different type of names we can call for the revolt of 1857. If we talk about this revolt, so it is known as the Sepoy Mutiny. If we talk about it also, it is also sometimes known as the uh, First War of Independence, as it was called by Mr. Veer Savarkar in his book. And apart from that, particularly the Prime Minister of Britain at that time, Palmerston was the Prime Minister at that time. He called it a mere mutiny of sepoys. But on the other side, the opposition of the British government at that time, he particularly called it a national revolt. So there are different names that are called for the revolt of 1857. So let's read out that what happened during the beginning. So on 29th March 1857 at Barakpur near Calcutta, Mangal Pandey, a young Indian Brahmin sepoy from 34th Bengal Native Infantry, refused to use greased cartridges. When he was forced by his sergeant, he shot him down, as I already told you in the story. On 10th May 1857, the rebellion started in the form of mutiny of sepoys of the company's army in the garrison town of Meerut, which is 40 miles northeast of Delhi. It then bursted into upper Gangetic Plain and central India into other mutinies and civilian rebellions. So all these things happen particularly in the beginning of the mutiny. And as I was saying, the death of Mangal Pandey basically sparked the thing. So do remember one thing. If someone asks you that who started the revolt of 1857, the answer is not Mangal Pandey. Mangal Pandey became one of the reason why later this revolt was started. But the thing is, he brought these things into limelight. He became the whistleblower at that time. And as soon as he was given death penalty, a particular outrage was sparked between the sepoys, between the Indian sepoys who were working in the British army at that time. And as I was saying, this spark became fire in Meerut. And in Meerut, particularly, the infantries were working, and the sepoys of the infantries working in Meerut, they particularly revolted. They started looting the particular armory, and they killed a lot of British officers, and they started their journey towards Delhi because they wanted to have a leader, and they were thinking to make Bahadur Shah Zafar as their leader. So these particular things happened, and as soon as these sepoys were moving majorly in the central India of our country, so a lot of different type of regions in central India became the part of this revolt. So I guess this point is also clear that how the beginning of how the revolt of 1857 was basically started, and what was the basic reason behind it. Now let's talk about the sepoy mutinies. So first of all, the reasons that why all the things happened. So discrimination in payment and promotion. So earlier we discussed about a different type of reasons happened, and how those reasons were affecting different type of people of different sectors in our country. But on the other side, if we talk about the Sepoy mutiny, why the Sepoys were so sparked from the behavior with the behavior of Britishers? Because the first thing is discrimination in payments and promotions. Do remember that the Indian Sepoys working in the British Army were not allowed to have promotions. They will remain to the position of JCOs, you can say, or Subedar, and all these type of positions. They will not be promoted to the officer rank. First thing. Another thing, that the payment they are getting in India and in overseas posting also was way too low. Another thing, if we talk about, is that they also were forced to avoid the religious rituals they are doing. As for example, the Muslims were asked to cut down their beard, and Hindus were asked to remove the tilaks and the particular um, raksha mantra in their hands, and any kind of tattoo that is associated with the religious things. So all these type of things were particularly banned for the Indian sepoys. So first thing is discrimination in payments and promotions. Mistreatment, this is also very important. Particular armies, they have British sepoys, Indian sepoys. The facilities for the British sepoys are way too good. The food that is given to them, the clothes that are given to them as a uniform, and all these things are regularly cleaned up, and a very clean type of food was given. But for the Indian sepoys, the food that has been served was way too low quality. And particularly if we talk about the things uniforms and other things were also very dirty. So mistreatment was regular in between the sepoys. Refusal of the government to pay foreign service allowance while fighting in remote areas. So if we talk about this one, so there was a refusal of the government to pay to the foreign service, as I was saying, alliance while fighting in the remote area. So any kind of person who has been posted to any kind of position, like the Afghan war was going, and a lot of Indian sepoys were posted in this area and the Afghanistan area, but they were not given any kind of alliance or any kind of posting alliance or anything. That is why that is also was one of the reasons. Religious objections of the high caste Hindu sepoys to Lord Canning's General Service Enlistment Act 1856, ordering all recruits to be ready for service both within and outside India. So one more thing, remember that in Hindus, at that time there was also another thing that was called Kala Pani. You must have heard this word Kala Pani, associating it with cellular jail, but do remember that it has a religious significance. So Kala Pani basically means that Hindus at that time were not allowed to cross a sea or any kind of water body. So at that time, particularly, it was against religion. If you are crossing any water body, so it was against the religion. So that is why, under this particular act, the Hindus were also to be given the foreign services, or particularly posting in the foreign wars and something. So Hindu, particularly the Hindu sepoys, they revolted that it is against their religion and they do not want to go to any kind of foreign post. Leaders and their centers. So now we will see the particular leaders who were particularly doing a lot of things, and if we talk about that, where they led the revolt and who suppressed them. So we will see one by one. So in this list, you can see on one side we have leaders, the place, and British officials. With the word British officials means those British officers who suppressed these leaders. So, firstly, if we talk about the first one, Bahadur Shah II and General Bakht Khan. So, do remember when I was telling you the story? On 10th of May 1857, the sepoys of British Army at that time, the Indian sepoys of British Army at that time, they revolted on 10th May 1857, and they started their journey. They started marching towards Delhi. As soon as they reached Delhi, they killed a lot of British officials there also, and they entered into the Red Fort. As soon as they entered into the Red Fort, Bakht Khan came to the Bahadur Shah II, that was Bahadur Shah Zafar, and told him that Indian sepoys are waiting in the courtyard in the particular hall, and they wanted you to become the leader of this revolt. So after a lot of dealings and all the other things, particularly Bahadur Shah Zafar agreed to become the center or to become the leader of these sepoys. And along with him, General Bakht Khan was also there, as Bahadur Shah was at the age of 80 at that time. So it was not possible for him to particularly handle all the things. So General Bakht Khan was also there. So they both started this revolt in Delhi. And later, this revolt was suppressed by John Nicholson, William Hudson, and James Outram. So do you remember one more thing that that in September 1857, the revolt was started in May 1857, and in September 1857, Bahadur Shah Zafar was basically captured by John Nicholson, William Hudson, and the other officer from the Humayun's tomb. Remember that. And along with his sons, he was particularly captured from Humayun's tomb, and he was sent to Rangoon. There was also another jail in Rangoon, and he was sent there. And his sons were killed at Delhi Gate. So that is how the Mughal Empire basically ended in 1857. After that, the next leader is Begum Hazrat Mahal, Lucknow, Colin Campbell. So let me tell you a story behind it also, a little story there is. So Begum Hazrat Mahal was the wife of Wajid Ali Shah. Wajid Ali Shah was basically the Nawab of Awadh, and Nawab of Awadh was forced by the Britishers to come into the doctrine of lapse. Why? Because Wajid Ali Shah was there, was alive. His son was also alive, Birjis Kadir, and his wife was also alive. So, on what basis you are applying doctrine of lapse? Wajid Ali Shah was asking. So, Britishers said that the misgovernance is going on in Awadh. So, do remember that Awadh was annexed on the basis of misgovernance, not on the basis of doctrine of lapse. So as soon as these things were applied in Awadh. So Wajid Ali Shah basically he gave the divorce to all his wives, and he left for Bengal. But Begum Hazrat Mahal, one of the wife of Wajid Ali Shah, she did not want to leave the Awadh, or you can say the Lucknow. So she started revolt with the help of sepoys. So Begum Hazrat Mahal revolted at Lucknow, and the revolt of her was suppressed by Colin Campbell. Then comes the Tatya Tope and Nana Sahib. These two names are really important because Nana Sahib was basically revolting in Kanpur, and Tatya Tope has his name in two revolts. Firstly, with Nana Sahib in Kanpur, and on the other side, with the Rani Lakshmi Bai in Jhansi and Gwalior. So basically, Tatya Tope held Nana Sahib in Kanpur, then Jhansi in Gwalior. Then Rani Lakshmi Bai in Gwalior. So I will tell you that story later. So Nana Sahib was none other than the last Peshwa of Marathas, who was particularly forced to live in this Kanpur area in Bithur. After the Anglo-Maratha wars happened, and after that the Peshwa was transferred from particularly the Pune area, the Maharashtra area, the Bombay area towards Kanpur area. Why? Because they wanted the Peshwa to be separated from the regional politics. And later on, after Bajirao II, Nana Sahib became the next Peshwa, and he was the last Peshwa of Marathas, basically, and he revolted in Kanpur along with his general Tatya Tope. Tatya basically means general. It is a position, and he was particularly the person who trained Nana Sahib, that was basically the Dhondu Pant, and apart from him, Rani Lakshmi Bai was also trained by Tatya Tope. So the revolt happened, and all these leaders were there. Let's see some more leaders. So here we can see Rani Lakshmi Bai. Very important, guys. Rani Lakshmi Bai revolted in Jhansi, or we can also use / Gwalior. So because Rani Lakshmi Bai started her revolt from Jhansi, and later she had to move to Gwalior also because Jhansi was annexed by Hugh Ross. And later she started her revolt from Gwalior also, where Tatya Tope also joined her. So Rani Lakshmi Bai was also known as Manikarnika, and she was married to the king of Jhansi. His her husband and her son died because of some kind of illness, and after that the Britishers applied doctrine of lapse, and that is why Jhansi was annexed basically in 1853 earlier. Now Rani Lakshmibai was also asked by the Indian sepoys to add into this revolt, and she agreed because she also wanted to have her Jhansi back. And during this scenario, Rani Lakshmibai fought this particular war, this particular revolt, and Hugh Ross, remember his name, was the one who suppressed the revolt of Jhansi and Gwalior. And remember one more thing, that when we are talking about Hugh Ross, so Hugh Ross in his book wrote that he faced one only man in this particular revolt, and that was Rani Lakshmi Bai. So this thing was written by Hugh Ross, and later he added one quote here: "The person who defeated Rani Lakshmi Bai." So he was feeling proud that he was able to defeat Rani Lakshmi Bai, because it was not very easy for him to control Rani Lakshmi Bai. Then comes the Khan Bahadur. Khan Bahadur was leading Bareilly, and he was suppressed by Vincent Ayre. Then comes the Kuwar Singh. Remember this name, very important. Kuwar Singh was basically leading from the Bihar, and he was suppressed by William Taylor. Then Maulvi Ahmedullah was leading from Faizabad, and he was suppressed by General Renaud. Then comes the Shah Mahal Allahabad, that is basically Baghpat, and UP Liaquat Ali, and basically they were particularly suppressed by Colonel Neil. So these are the names you need to remember. Always remember that if they will be asking you an easy question, they will ask you that which particular personality started revolt in which particular place. But if they wanted to ask you a difficult question, they will ask you that who was the one who suppressed those revolts. So it will become an if it will become a difficult question. Also remember that a matching will can also be asked from this particular topic. Now, apart from that, the causes for the failure of the revolt. Now let's see that why this revolt failed. First is the limited territorial and social base. So the first thing that we can say is the things that the sepoys wanted to create, or particularly they wanted to create awareness in the social base, in the social area, and in the territorial regions. So they were not able to do that. A lot of people were aligning towards the British, and they were helping the British in this revolt, and not the particular people who are revolting. All classes did not join, as I was saying. Particularly the people from different classes, the kings, the zamidars, and lot of different type of peoples, they did not join this revolt, because they had in their mind that particularly if the Britishers will win, they will go in favor of British only, and that is how they will get their profit, that they will help Britishers in this revolt. Poor arms and equipments. This is very important. The revolt was started against and basically the immediate cause that at that time, and that was the P-53 Enfield rifles. But you will see that when the revolt was going, a lot of different type of places, the people were using the P-53 Enfield rifles against the Britishers only. So by the time they have new equipments and other things, so they were particularly revolting. But as soon as all those type of new equipments and new uh, arms and new type of technologies were getting out of their hand, they were started getting defeated in this revolt. Uncoordinated and poorly organized, lack of central leadership. This is really important, guys. As you can see, all these people who are leading the revolts in different places, they did not have any kind of coordination between them. They did not have any kind of thing like at which particular place they will particularly attack first, and what kind of technology or what kind of thinking they are particularly using. So all these things were not there, and that became one of the reasons that why there was no coordination. And another thing is the lack of central leadership. Bahadur Shah Zafar was made the leader, but he remained in Delhi only, and he was not able to take the coordinates with all of them. So that becomes one of the reasons of the failure. No unified ideology. That is really important, guys. Remember, this was the time when the revolt was happening. So basically, the revolt was happening because they all wanted themselves to be freed from the Britishers, but as a unity, as a unit, not as a confined unity, as a particular common thing was not there. The idea of freedom was basically not there. The idea of India or Bharat was not there. So that is why this revolt particularly also failed. So all these are the things, and here we can see she is Rani Lakshmibai, famously known as her real name Manikarnika, and her horse name was Badal. And she is famously known for this revolt as the way she fought against the Britishers. So all these things happened, and particularly if we talk about the revolts happened, the peoples we can see here, and we are now know that what were the causes of the failure of the revolt. Let's read further. Now we have to see the consequences that what happened after the revolt. So abolition of companies rule and crown took over the administration. This is really important, guys. Since the starting of the after the Battle of Buxar and Treaty of Allahabad, a lot of type of acts were brought into our country. Like you will see the 1773 Regulating Act, the 1793 Charter Act, 1813 Charter Act, 1833 Charter Act, 1853 Charter Act. Then particularly all these charter acts were coming as particularly the Britishers were trying to control the country with the help of these type of new laws that they were implementing year after year after the gap of 20 years basically. But now the Queen Victoria of at that time, she said that company is not able to control the things in India, and she particularly started creating her own control in India, and that is why the company was basically replaced with the crown. So crown took over, and the administration was taken into the hand of the crown, and that is how the British Raj was started. Or we can say the government of Britain started controlling India with the help of Viceroy and Legislative Council and Executive Council in our country. Annexation of Indian states and expansion as a policy were ended by the British. So basically, the things, the places, the regions they wanted to annex in our country, they have already annexed. And now they have ended the policy that they do not want to annex any kind of Indian states and expansion, as they thought that it has become one of the reasons that why there is a lot of tension in the people of this country. So they had basically said that they do not want to expand anywhere. But if we ask them now that what was that particular place that was left behind, there was no particular area, no kingdom that was left at that time to be annexed. So the policy can be thrown away very easily. Army was thoroughly reorganized by the British based on British military policy, division, and counterpoise. So they also started creating a lot of kind of divide and rule thing into the regiments also. Britishers knew one thing, that their British sepoys will be in their hand, will be in their control. But now they have to control the Indian sepoys. And during the revolt of 1857, they saw one very important thing, and that was the Hindu Muslim unity at that time. So, because of this, they started creating division and counterpoise policy into the British army also, but that is only between the Indian sepoys. Increase in racial hatred between the ruled and the ruling classes. So, a lot of things were also started, like the recognition to the kings and the officials became really important. And people, particularly, like if we talk about the Britishers, particularly started creating a lot of racial discrimination between the ruling class and the peoples ruled by them. White mutiny. Because of the cancellation of bhatta that they used to receive earlier, there was a resentment among company forces to transfer their allegiance to the British army. So basically, they used to provide a lot of allowance to the British army officers also. But as soon as that particular alliance was cancelled, that bhatta was cancelled. So a basic contention, bone of contention, was also started in between the British sepoys. That is why a white mutiny was also started at that time. Views on revolt. So let's see that what are the different views on this revolt. So according to D. Savarkar, it was the first war of Indian independence that particularly happened, And as I was saying, Mr. Veer Savarkar was the one who wrote this book and called it the first war of Indian independence. It was described as the war of nation's independence by Tarachand. So another author, he was saying that it is the war of nation's independence. According to R.C. the Majumdar, revolt of 1857 of independence was neither the first nor national nor a war of independence. So I hope you know the historian Majumdar. He was also associated with the discovery of Indus Valley civilization, and he called it that the revolt of 1857 of independence was neither the first nor national nor a war of independence. As per Surendra Nath Sen, it began as a fight for religion and end as a war of independence. So basically, Surendranath Sen has his own view that he was saying that the revolt was started as a fight for religion because the revolt was against the use of Enfield rifles. And why against Enfield rifles? Because they were using the fat oil of pigs and cows in creating the coating of cartridges. So that is why he was saying that it was a fight for religion, but later ended as a war of independence. So here we can see these are the different views, and I already told you about the Prime Minister Palmerston. Remember this point, write down this point that at that time the Prime Minister of Britain was Palmerston, and he said and he called this revolt a mere mutiny. But the opposition against him in the British House of Commons called it a national revolt. So let's read some more consequences, guys. Important Sepoy mutinies before 1857 revolt. So this was not the first mutiny happened. Before the 1857 revolt mutiny, a lot of different mutinies also happened in our country. Let's see. So first was Vellore mutiny, that was 1806. It was a mutiny happened in Vellore, and this was the time when the Britishers started introducing those things like the Muslims cannot have beard, the Hindus cannot have kalavas in their hand and tilaks on their forehead. So all these things were started introducing. So Vellore mutiny happened in 1806. Mutiny of the 47th Native Infantry Unit 1824. So basically a 47th Native Infantry of unit also revolted in 1824, and that was certain because a lot of things were happening. So small revolts were also happening at that time. Revolt of Grenadier Company, Assam, 1825. So a Grenadier Company basically also revolted, and that was based in Assam in 1825. Mutiny in Solapur, 1833. So 1833 was the time when the Charter Act was also came, and at that time the Governor General of our country was William Benedict, and under his Governor Generalship, the mutiny of Solapur happened. Mutiny of 34th Native Infantry Unit, 1844. So before the 34th Native Infantry of Barakpur started the revolt, the 34th Infantry also revolted in 1844. Mutiny of 22nd Native Infantry Unit, 1849. Mutiny of the 66th Native Infantry Unit, 1850. Mutiny of 37th Native Infantry Unit, 1852. So here you can see there's a list of Sepoy mutinies happening, and particularly Sepoy mutiny basically means that all the Sepoys are getting together and they started revolting, that they do not want some things to happen into their companies, into their units, and because of which they started revolting. So in all these units, in all these revolts or mutiny, basically Britishers by hook or by crook, they have suppressed all these mutinies. But in 1857, the explosion that was coming out of this revolt of 1857 revolt, the Britishers were not able to handle it. They later handled it very well as the revolt ended in November 1858, but not like the other mutinies. All these mutinies were started and ended in just few days. But in 1857, the things that not did not happen. So I guess this chapter is clear to all of you, and all the things that we have discussed so far and all the type of mutinies I have discussed you with you so far are very clear in your mind, and you will not face any kind of difficulty in this particular topic. So, with that point, I take your leave. And the next time we will meet, we will see some more topics, some more things that we can discuss, and we will see if we can understand, we can think about that what has happened in the modern history later. And we will also take a lot of notes and lot of things into our points later on. But the time we meet, till the time we meet, bye bye. Take care, everyone, and see you soon.